influence people about their politics? Do you think that anything politically can happen in America? You talk about American audiences and American people not being quite as, seems to me you're saying they're not as evolved as people somewhere else. Can anything be done through music?
I wouldn't like to be accredited with the statement that people in America are not as evolved as people somewhere else. That's your statement.
Thank you.
What I would like to say is that there is a problem in the United States where a lot of people have goodwill going for them, or they really want to do something.
The Red Sox are going for their third win in a row.
And don't know how to go about
Welcome
it.
to the ball game, folks. I'm Dwight Kuiper alongside Mike Trucco. Should be a great game tonight between the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. Starting the game for the home team, Matt Clement.
In terms of, repairing some of the evils of society and so on and so forth. And I think that rather than add to the confusion at this stage of the game, I'd like to just observe what happens with the 18-year-old vote this time around and see whether or not it's a mistake. Because the merchandising in this campaign of the president and so forth is just as grim as it was during the last round, where the campaigning was aimed at the taste and the attitudes of the parents and the older voter. The same sort of grim machine is being employed right now. It's just the jargon has changed slightly, the packaging has changed, and it's being aimed in the direction of the teenage voter. And seeing as how this is their first time out, and they perhaps don't know the ropes as well as some of the older, more disillusioned voters. It may be a vulnerable market for this kind of thing, and I just hope that it doesn't get conned into voting for something that won't really pay off. I mean, obviously it's necessary and desirable that people who are 18 have the right to vote. The question is whether or not they're going to be intelligent enough to do something better with it than what their parents did in the past. I'm just waiting to see that. I have great hopes, however, for the generation coming up within the next 40 years. The little kids, your kids. Well, people who will have a better overview of media in its fully developed state. Like the generation that I'm from grew up through the development of television and has a different view of television than somebody who is, say, 13 or 14, because it was already an established fact from the minute they were born. And so it holds a different kind of position in their intellectual life, say. And I think that there will also be other developments of an electronic media nature between now and the next 40 years that will surpass that and will make a difference in the attitudes of the kids who are 2 and 3 years old right now. Give them a different perspective. Hopefully with a perspective that includes all of electric media and its tricks. Those people will at last be able to make some better judgments about the whole con game of politics.
What kind of tricks do you mean in media?
Well, just the way in which people who are interested in manufacturing and selling certain kinds of products or ideas present those products or ideas in a falsified format to the people that they expect to hype with them. Not just specifically commercials, but the whole idea that properly packaged you can sell anything to an American.
One of those lowly or evolved people. Do you tell your kids anything about television? Do you rap to them about what television is and how it works and what the tricks are?
Sure, all the time.
Because I do that with my kids, and it's a very, very, very difficult thing for me to do. What do you do with them?
Well, first of all, we explain to them that the people on television who tell them things are getting paid to say that. And they can understand that. So consequently, we take them places, and if somebody says something that appears to be a little bit mysterious to them, whether it's television or not, they'll ask us, is he getting paid to say that? And I think that's something to remember all the time. Is he getting paid to say that? Is he getting paid to do that?
What about the thousands of Indians dying and all the shoot-em-ups and things like that? Do you relate to that? help them relate to that?
Well, that is difficult. That is a problem. There have been lectures in that regard, but I think kids like the idea of things that go bang and smoke coming out without associating the end result of what those devices do. I know that Dweezil is fascinated by little puffs of smoke and guys who fall down and roll around, fall off buildings and that kind of stuff, but we hope that we can direct that into an acrobatic area rather than what it's really supposed to be.
So philosophically, you're sort of laying out, you're playing music now into music almost as a pure form without the kind of content that maybe Status Back Baby had, or the great middle period mothers and the early period mothers. Do you foresee a time which you'll come back and do that kind of thing at all?
I would say that your analysis is incorrect. You're assuming that because the lyrics do not say Status Back Baby, that the consciousness of Status Back Baby has departed from the work that I do. And you're saying that because those lyrics are not attached to it, that what I'm doing now is perhaps in a purer state. And I say neither of those is true, because the whole concept of what that kind of satire is and what that kind of commentary is present in all the music. And it doesn't have to be associated with a verbal presentation of it.
But it is at a much more sophisticated level, is all I'm saying.
Well, the sophistication is a result of two things. One, the improvement of the equipment, which is available for all musicians to use, because at the time we began performing and recording in 64 and 65 with a Freak Out album, there was no such thing as a 16-track recorder. There was no such thing as a Marshall amplifier. There was no such thing as an enormous PA system that allow you to pump out 5,000 watts and hear vocals over screaming amps. Those refinements of contemporary civilization did not exist. I don't know how we lived without it, but we did. We had little cheesy amps and we carted them around and we made our albums on a 4-track machine. And now they have all that other stuff, and so I'm interested in seeing that stuff put to good use. And the sophistication that emerges from the use of these things is a combination of the hardware being available and our access to that hardware, and also the improved musicianship of the people who are performing in the group. Like the things that I'm writing today, I could have written years ago, but I wouldn't have gotten them performed. In fact, I've still got things that I did write years ago that we could perform now that would be interesting, but at that time would have been impossible for the musical abilities of the members of the Mothers of the earliest days.
All I'm saying, Frank, is that although your music hasn't really changed in terms of its basic nature, you can still hear Frank Zappa in almost every note of the Frank Zappa records and Mothers of Invention records that I hear these days. There's always been a crazy love for classical music and kind of mixture.
Crazy love for classical music.
But it's just that I think there are a lot of us that are afraid that that a music that's too difficult for people to hear will evolve, and you'll get too involved in it, and the vast audiences that can. Well, I don't even think I want to say that. I mean, if that's where you're going, that's where you're going, and if the people that love you can't go with it, then that's fine too, I guess. And I don't want to get into the position of playing this kind of role with you too much longer, because I just wanted, obviously, to put that position to you that you're walking towards a more purist kind of role in music. You're not interested, obviously, in being a rock and roll star in the sense that that Mick Jagger's and various heroes have become, and that there is a danger, clearly, in getting off in a corner and playing music that relates to Webern and not to people. That's all. And if people can't hear Webern, it's not their own fault, I don't think. I mean, it's just that being brought up in America watching Kukla, Fran and Ali and the the Mouse Club, you don't get to hear music like Webern or like Mozart or like Frank Zappa that much. And I'm not going to be the one that says you have to do it, because I love your music now. And I just hope that audiences come to it and that you have luck with it, and that if you want to come back and make more broad, obvious statements, that you do it, and that you have the access to it that you have now, coming off the success of whatever number of years it has been with the Mothers of Invention. So that's my position. I mean, if I don't want to be yelled at any longer for taking a position that's you know, anti-musical.
Well, I know it's all a game. It's the
interview,
age-old interview game. But what I would like to say is this: the discussion of Webern in this conversation is almost blasphemous. And I would like to suggest that if anybody's got an opportunity, that they would go out and actually listen to Webern so they know what this discussion is about. First of all, for those of you who don't know, his name is spelled W-E-B-E-R-N. His first name is Anton, and he's dead. You understand? And go to a record store and ask for, let's see, there was one album called The Collected Works of Anton Webern, and it's conducted by Robert Kraft. That's available in mono.
Columbia.
Yes, and there are also some other ones that aren't too shabby that are available on some European labels, like Philips has one of an Italian string quartet that's playing some of his string quartet pieces. That's very good. I can't remember what the name of the quartet is, but...
Quartetto Italiano.
Is that it?
That's it.
The one with the black turtlenecks on the front.
That's that.
Yeah. But go down and listen to some of this music and, you know, see whether or not it's too abstract for your mind. I don't think it will be. I think that if you get over the initial shock of hearing how much space there is between the notes, and hearing that the dynamics are not extremely loud, and hearing that the texture of the music is something completely different than what you're normally accustomed to, I think that if you listen to it with a little sensitivity and appreciation, it might even get you off. It doesn't have much of a beat, but it is all right.
Give it an 83.
I'd give it 165. I would say that if there was anybody who has ever written music and been involved in the composing business that got close to writing some saintly stuff, it was Anton Webern, because you talk about a purist, you got it.
He could be talking about himself, Frank Zappa's the purist. We don't have more of Frank Zappa because we experienced an accident sitting there in his house saying to ourselves, can't have an accident in Frank Zappa's house. But we did. The tape ate itself, and we could eat ourselves. And you, for listening to Electric Tongue, this is Martin Perlich. Good night.
For you folks tonight, Frank Zappa is here on... And in addition to Frank, of course, his daughter, Moon, is here tonight. Hi there. Welcome back to the program. My next two guests are the first father and daughter team we've ever had on this television program. The father made a name for himself in the late 60s as the leader of the Mothers of Invention, and the daughter, certainly, you can applaud that, absolutely. The daughter is currently making a name for herself as the person who introduced Valley Girls to the rest of the world. Please welcome Frank and Moon Zappa. You folks, you in particular, I'm guessing, Frank, have quite a following here in the audience, and we're very pleased to have you here. Let me ask, I know you get tired probably of discussing your family's sons and daughters' names and so forth, but originally you named Moon Unit, right?
Right.
And now you've dropped the unit?
No, I've kept the unit. Still on my birth certificate.
Still on, and what exactly was going through your mind when you named her Moon Unit?
Well, actually, it was a choice between that and Motorhead. I was told that.
It was now. Now I saw your son, or one of your sons, on the Today Show this morning, and his name is Dweezil. Now these are well, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but these are peculiar names for children.
The catch is made by the left fielder.
Has it been a problem for you, Moon, being known as Moon Unit?
No, not really. When I was little, I wanted to change my name to Beauty Heart or Mary, but I think that I like my name.
Yeah. And what about the names of the other?
Dweezil, Amit, and Diva.
Yeah, Amit and Diva. Now, I know I was reading that Amit actually wanted to change his name for a time, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, to what?
Rick.
Rick.
When people called him Amit, when people called him Amit, they called him Amit Vomit. And then when he changed his name to Rick, they called him Rick. So he changed it back again.
But actually, you know, they should just call him Amit. Because as he matures, I'm sure that that's what will stick with him.
You get the sense that all hell has broken loose here, and
Quite a bit of heck.
yes. Now, tell me about your father as a father. I mean, he is a musical and sociological phenomenon, and a legend, and a little strange, or at least used to present himself that way. What was he, or what is he like around the house?
Well, you know, the usual sadomasochism. No, he's a normal guy. I mean, really.
Now, what about when you bring friends?
Interested now, huh?
when you bring friends over to the, how old are you? Do you mind?
14.
14. So we bring boys home to meet your dad. Is that strange or not?
Yes, I bring them home, and Frank looks at them, shakes their hand, asks them questions, and you know, if they're okay, you know, it's all right.
Yeah. Now what what constitutes okay for you? Have you? I mean, anybody not make the cut?
Well, she had a guy over the other day that I didn't like too much.
I don't like him either.
Well, I wouldn't want to embarrass him
By singling
describing,
him.
yeah.
So.
But that's the only one that she's brought to the house that I didn't like.
Yeah.
And only because he was like a wise guy type.
Kind of a, yeah. Smart mouth.
A nerd.
Now this collaboration between the two of you, have you ever worked together before on a project?
Yeah, on the last album.
And that was the one before the single that's so popular now?
That's right.
Yeah, and do you want to be a singer, Moon?
No, I want to be an actress. I'm looking at scripts now. I can sing if it's necessary. I'd like to do a musical or Hawaiian Punch commercial, or perhaps be
Me too. How about you?
perhaps be an Encino housewife.
So these are all lofty ambitions, and we're going to take a pause here, and I'm not sure why exactly, but we'll be back to talk with Mr. Frank Zappa and his daughter, Moon. Back to the show. This is the most recent Frank Zappa album, Ship Arriving, Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch, from which Valley Girls is taken, or is on, or whatever they say when it's included in the album. Explain to us, again, you must be tired of this explanation, but tell us about how this came to be. Either one of you. This is a toss-up question for 20 points.
Oh, well. I was qualified for the job, and, you know, I've been to parties, bar mitzvahs. I know what I'm doing. So.
Now by qualified for the job, you mean this song is about your peer group, right, essentially?
Well, anybody who knows what the Valley's about, and
I have been to the San Fernando Valley.
experiences it, and can let others experience it as well.
And what is it about? Yeah, what in your estimation, what is the Valley about, Frank?
You see, I don't want to break the hearts of a lot of people who really like this record. Because I hate the San Fernando Valley. I think it's perhaps one of the most disgusting places on the face of the earth. And I wrote this song about the values of the people in the San Fernando Valley. But it turned out to be cute, and so everybody thinks it's cute. Okay, it's a nice, cute record.
Now, for people who may not know what, if you could just talk like these people talk, do you mind? Or
selling for real estate.
Well, like, okay, take this house over here, for example. You notice it's got like a little picket fence. So cute. There's like vines growing over everything. I don't know what the flowers are called, but like, they're so awesome.
So it just airheads is what you're saying, pretty much. Yeah. And what I read about the record, you got her out of bed at midnight and said, "Come down here." And did you just ad lib what's on the record, or?
Yes.
Yeah. And the results have been overwhelming, successfully for you both. Ridiculously so. Now, when you were in your earlier stages of your career, you did some, as far as public appearances, you did some interesting things, audience participation, you know.
Yep. That's right.
You got Marines out of the audience and on stage?
Yes, which is a good place for me.
Now, once you get them on stage, what do you do with them?
Well, you're talking about something that happened in 1967 at the Garrick Theater, in the middle of the Vietnam War, and what happened was there had been a murder in the village, and I think a Marine had been killed, and somebody had spread this rumor that the hippies had done it. So all the Marines were coming into the village, the rumor had it, to murder people with long hair. Remember when all that stuff was popular to do? And so we were rehearsing one day, and these 3 Marines came in full dress uniform in the afternoon. And I figured, well, if this was the hit squad, they wouldn't be dressed up. And they were just fans.
Yeah.
And they were hanging out for a while. And we talked to them after the rehearsal and asked them if they knew any good songs and if they wanted to come on the stage. So they said that they knew House of the Rising Sun and Everybody Must Get Stoned. So I said, well, that's really good. We'll warm up. We'll learn the songs. And we go across the street to the Tin Angel and get drunk and come back when the show starts. So they did. And when they came back, they sang the 2 songs, and then I said to the audience, well, let's hear it for the United States Marines, and we got this large doll of a child, and said, how would you like to show these people what you would do with this in your normal daily work? And they ripped it apart on stage with musical accompaniment, and then after they had finished that, I showed the pieces of the broken doll to the audience. There was a lot of people crying.
Yeah. So, that's...
Well, you know, there's a reason for doing things like that, and by the time the media gets a hold of it and people try and explain it over and over again, it turns out to sound like something weird to do.
It still sounds like something... Well, no, in the context of the times, I understand it, but yeah. Yeah, and for instance...
It was pretty sick back then, wasn't it?
Now, another time, you actually got yourself kind of roughed up in London, right?
Yeah, I was attacked by a crazy person.
And the crazy person was unhappy with you, or just crazy?
Well, who knows about crazy people?
Yeah, that's true.
For sure.
Yeah, it was...
But I spent a couple of months in the hospital and a year in a wheelchair, and that was not too fun.
Yeah. And you never found out what the motive for this was?
Well, he told 2 different stories when I caught him. The first story he told was, see, what happened was I was working in a theater that had an orchestra pit 15 feet deep with a concrete floor in the bottom, and they didn't have it covered over. And the security guards that were hired by the theater were off to the side smoking some marijuana at the end of the show just as we were doing the encore, so they weren't paying attention. And this guy came out of the audience and he knocked me into the orchestra pit. So he told the press that I had been making eyes at his girlfriend and he was jealous. That was one story. I couldn't even see him or I didn't even know what the guy looks like today. Didn't see him or his girlfriend because the lights were in my eyes. And then after that, he said, well, we weren't giving him enough value for his ticket dollar. That was the second story that he gave.
For his entertainment dollar. C. Moon, your father has had a very difficult life, and we're going to pause. Again, we'll return to talk more about this with Frank and his daughter Moon.
Hello, I'm Larry Bud Melman with yet another of my 5 good reasons why you should ride Melman buses. Yet another number 2. Riding backwards in a bus could cause motion sickness and other fatal diseases. That's why on Melman buses, all the seats face forward, the very same direction the bus is heading in. Melman buses, see where you're going, not where you've been.
Hi there. Welcome back to the show. Frank Zappa and his daughter Moon Zappa are here. I wanted to ask you about your friends in the Valley. How do they react to your success by introducing them to the world?
Well, most of my friends don't speak Valley. They prefer to speak English, but those that I imitated are flattered because if there's one thing Valley girls love, it's attention. And,
you're making a lot of money on this, I hope, huh? And Frank, it was a pleasure meeting you. I've been an admirer of yours for many, many years, and I know you had a greeting for someone here.
Yeah, ready? Happy birthday, George.
And George has quite a following of his own, apparently.
That's right. George is a cool guy. He was there when it was all happening.
And George will be...
75.
75. Well, again, and for me, George, happy birthday, too. Look for the UPS truck coming by with a lovely gift. Thank you very much, folks. I know you're very busy. I appreciate you being here. Frank? Thank you very much. Well, now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for a segment of this program that we like to call Stupid Pet Tricks. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take a moment here to tell you about tomorrow night's program. We will have on this very show Mr. Frank Zappa, also comedian, juggler Michael Davis, who is in a brand new television program on this very network, which debuts tonight. Also, an animal interpreter, Dave McKelvey. I'm not sure what the man does, but he is an animal interpreter. And, in fact, we have a second. Let's just find out what the guy does. I'm going to introduce you now to a man you may have seen before on the show, one of our segment producers, Mr. Bob Morton. Bob, can you come out here? Bob, nice to see you. Bob, as you heard, we're talking about tomorrow night's show. Dave McKelvey, an animal interpreter. What exactly is that?
He talks to animals. Very talented man, very talented. And he's bringing with him Sylvia, the world's most amazing pigeon.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And they will have a conversation tomorrow?
Yeah, and he'll talk to Sylvia, and he actually throws Sylvia like an airplane.
Throws the bird?
Yeah.
Is that legal?
I think so. He does it. He does it for a long time. Yeah, he's here, as a matter of fact.
He's here?
Yeah,
oh,
if
sure.
you want to ask him.
Yeah, he's a day early, oddly enough. But hi, Dave. How are you? Is that Sylvia?
This is Sylvia.
Oh, nice to see you. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Okay, thank you.
Anecdotes.
Anecdotes?
Maybe, life on the road, that kind of...
Any chance of a new album that we can discuss tomorrow night?
I don't know. I've got the old one. Frank is backstage.
Frank is backstage.
Seriously. Now, if you want to ask him...
Sure.
Frank, David Letterman? This is Bob Martin from Tampa. All right. Just stay right there. We met. Of course. How are you? All right. Good. Good to see you.
Okay, now what do I do?
Frank, what give us an idea what you're going to be talking about tomorrow night?
Brown lipstick.
All right, brown lipstick. So put that in your TV guide. And the corporate what?
Brown lipstick in the corporate suite.
All right, brown lipstick in the corporate suite. Frank, if you can just stay right there for a second. Also on tomorrow night's show, we'll have, Thursday night is always viewer mail night, and to give you an idea what that's going to be like, let me introduce you to our head writer, Mr. Jim Downey. Jim, come on in. Frank Zappa, and you know, of course, Gerard and Bob. What do we have on tap tomorrow night, Jim?
Okay, well, we have a letter from a man named Judas, who he really liked that show where you threw the coffee in Paul's face.
It's a long time ago, right?
Well, it was, but we sort of thought you might throw one of your blue cards at Paul and put his eye out.
I don't know. No. Well, Frank likes it. All right. Well, if Frank likes it, we'll do that one.
We also have a letter here from someone who wants to know why every time someone appears on Live at 5, they show up on our show, and then asks whatever happened to the late night fish sticks.
Late night fish sticks. That's
so
right.
we're talking to Jack Cafferty about interviewing one of the fish sticks.
I think I'll go with Frank on the blue card in the eye. Those are all good suggestions. Anything else we can look forward to on the show tomorrow night?
Well, as you know, yesterday was Flag Day, so we thought it'd be a good time to do a piece on flags from around the world.
Okay, great.
And Dan Blyer.
Dan, how are you? Nice to see you, Dan. Dan's makes many of the props and so forth we use on the show. What do you have there, Dan?
Yeah, well, we found this new map of Wyoming, which has an individual portrait of everyone in the state.
That's great. Very nice, Dan. We'll look forward to that. That'll be Flag Day tomorrow. Now, we, from time to time, introduce new slides going into commercial and coming out of commercial. Let's check with the art department. Here's Ed Hall and Bob Pook. Ed? Is this a new slide for tomorrow night?
It'll be premiering tomorrow night. Brand
new. And this is kind of the summer theme there.
Yeah.
That's nice. All right.
Night beer.
Very nice job. Nice work. And Bob, what do you have for us?
Premiere is the new late night poster.
Oh, that's great.
Bus shelters.
This will be tomorrow night. Thank you very much, Bob.
Shot at night, right?
Also, at the beginning of every program, Bill Wendell has a few words to say. Bill, give us a highlight of what we're going to hear tomorrow night.
Dave, in my years in the industry, I've never been more excited about this.
Right.
Look forward to it. From New York, home of the Indianapolis 500, it's Late Night with David Letterman. Tonight, musician Frank Zappa, animal interpreter Dave McKelvey, and comedian juggler Michael Davis. Also a look at new flags and viewer mail.
That's right.
And now, a man who sleeps in a suit, David Letterman.
Okay, Bill. Very nice. Now, Paul, anything musically we can look forward to tomorrow night, sir, aside from Mr. Zappa?
In the emergency room taking care of my eye, but if I get back in time, we'll probably start the first commercial break with our fabulous version of Sly's Dances and Music.
Okay, can we want to hear just a little of that?
Hear a little bit of it?
Just a little of it right now?
Do it.
Okay, very nice. Now, every night on the show, there are always some tickets reserved for special people who will be in attendance in the studio audience. Marie O'Donnell has the ticket list for tomorrow night's show. Marie, why don't you go ahead and read some of the names of some of the people who will be in the audience tomorrow night.
Okay, Beth Filler's bringing 2 people. Reagan Atkins and Welch Golightly. They'll be 2 people. Oh, here they are now.
Here they are now? Okay, come on in, folks. Part of our studio audience.
John Cornelison is here with his family, Kelly.
Okay, great.
Peter Simpkin, his 3 kids, Elizabeth, Mary.
All right, okay, well, we're going to pause now for a commercial while Marie finishes up the audience guest list. We'll be right back with Magic Johnson. Folks, and once again, my thanks to the everybody who helps out in the viewer mail by sending in your letters, and to another fine job by another fine studio audience. My thanks to you folks also. In the 1960s, my first guest founded a band called the Mothers of Invention, and through live performances and such albums as Weasels Ripped My Flesh and Burnt Weenie Sandwich, he established a reputation as a brilliant musician and an exciting performer. This is an album of his latest work, ladies and gentlemen, Zappa Volume 1. We're delighted to have him back with us tonight. Please welcome Frank Zappa. Nice to see you again. I want to thank you for coming by last night and helping us out. And when you were here last night, you said that when you came back tonight, there was something you wanted to talk about. Do you remember what you said that was?
Yeah, I thought that one of the important topics that we could discuss in the show, such as you've been conducting tonight, which this really fits in, is brown lipstick in the corporate suite.
Brown lipstick in the corporate suite. Yeah. All right, you go first.
Okay. Well, I think that nobody really looks good with brown lipstick. So why do these guys in the corporate suite keep wearing it? And how does it get there? This is one of the problems facing us today. And what do you think?
Have you run into this a lot, Frank?
Yeah.
And
I was at CBS yesterday.
CBS, and men and women alike were wearing the brown lipstick.
They do.
Boy, I don't know.
See, you're lucky. You have the little blue cards to go with.
That's right. I can keep that from happening. We have folks who have come specifically to the show tonight to hear about your latest album, the London Symphony Orchestra, performing heretofore unrecorded Frank Zappa works. How do you get the London Symphony Orchestra to do your stuff?
You pay them.
2-1.
Yeah. But isn't this a really prestigious organization?
Of course. So you pay them a lot of money.
Yeah. And did you flew to London to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I read something from the liner notes? Musical information. This is the first recorded performance of these works. It goes on. As with every performance of new music, errors will occur. Every effort has been made to remove these, but without a much larger budget for rehearsal and recording time, the possibility of perfection in a premiere situation such as this is somewhat remote. Now, what does that mean exactly?
That means that anytime somebody writes a piece of music that nobody's ever seen before, and you hand that music to a musician, unless they have sufficient time to rehearse it and get all the details worked out, the chances of an absolutely perfect performance are good. And given the amount of money that I had to spend to produce an album of orchestral music, and the fact that I had a fixed amount of time because of their schedule to do this, that it would be humanly impossible to play works of this complexity absolutely perfect.
Yes.
But we tried.
Now, how close did you get?
I would say that considering the amount of editing that was done to remove bad notes played by various people, that we're up to about 75% on this record.
Well, that's a pretty good deal, isn't it?
It's not too bad.
Now, did you feel driven by integrity to put this on here, or is this common procedure?
No, that was just, I have a personal relationship with my fans where I don't mess around.
Yeah.
And I wanted to let them know that if they listen. They had a little television set, and in every office, CNN headline news was on. The sound was off. Everybody was looking at the pictures. This news flash comes on that in East Germany, the people had just rushed in and taken over the secret police headquarters and were swarming into the street with bottles of champagne and dossiers of this. And they just kicked over the KGB. The Russians were looking at this like,
hit that ball in the line.
what do you make of this? We had no idea what it was. And then this little 1-minute story is then followed by the Hollywood Minute. You ask, how do people in other countries imagine Americans based on our broadcasting? You tell me.
This dude just
What
knows
would you
how to
think?
steal it back. He studies film, he studies pictures, and he can try to apply all that right now.
He's hitting 296.
The reality is invented for you by people who choreograph it. There's got to be an office in Washington.
Ramos looks at a ball.
A bunch of people that you never heard of choreograph reality. It's not just looking at
Strike
photos.
three, and he'll take a seat.
It's what is the interpretation of a given international event. And this has to be generally dispensed.
Up next,
with no questions asked.
This guy's a prime candidate for trying to swipe the bag right here.
Yank to the left side. Safe at first.
I can see both things happening. I think that there has been a drop-off in viewership to network television as more people hooked up to cable. And the networks, I'm sure, would admit this, that they've lost business just because cable has more of what people would like to see. Whether people will stop watching television and go to something else, I don't think so.
Swung through the fastball
One of the
down and
reasons
away.
why that's not going to be true in Los Angeles is as it becomes more and more dangerous and more expensive to leave your house for entertainment.
Hit to right field.
You almost by default wind up having a family
Makes the
unit
catch to
and
record
family
the
units
out.
at home because it's scary to get in your car in California. Get in your car, drive someplace and go to a movie or go to dinner or something because you could get killed. It's weird out there. So it's safer at home. That's one of the reasons why video stores do a good business. You know, you look around so nobody's going to do a drive-by shooting. You go in, you get your video, and then go home and pretend you went to the movies.
This following some sort of function, maybe can you bring
If there's any family left, I mean, in order to have a family, all your younger children have to go out and sell crack in order to support everybody else.
Just inside, 2-2.
Look like the pitcher and catcher have a strategy in mind. So far, the batters are taking these pitches.
Strike 3, and he'll take his seat.
Because I'm an amateur sociologist, and if you can read the images, you can make decisions about how things are going.
All right, everybody, up on their feet. Time for the 7th inning stretch.
Shot
Yeah, I could use a bit of a break.
What topics are covered in the news? What sort of images, what stereotypes appear in the characters who inhabit the commercial?
The next batter
They're not
is
just selling you the product, they're selling you the lifestyle in which the product functions. Because a lot of the stuff they're selling you has no earthly use. And so you have to create this imaginary world in which the product must be consumed. And so looking at the images that are manufactured of the people
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase you.
desire to
Exactly
use
what you saw
product
right
X.
there.
It's telling you something about the mindset. First of all, of Madison Avenue. Secondly, of drug busters. And also of the government. Because none of this would be done if the FCC didn't approve of it. And if it stays on the air, that means somebody is buying the product.
3-2.
And that tells you something about the people that they designed this pitch for.
And he's down on strikes.
Hey, sometimes you make a good pitch, and that was one of them. Big strikeout there, partner.
Yeah, if you learn how to read it.
Stepping
Because
in.
the news isn't just the story. It's
nobody
how often they repeat the story, what the tone of voice is that was used to set up the story, how the story is actually photographed, whether or not in CNN's case, whether or not they bring on a so-called expert to explain the story to you. And CNN also has this infotainment kind of on the weekends. They have groups of journalists or pseudo-journalists or representatives of think tanks or research institutes or whatever. They're all right now. They're all getting all key to file on the weekend. And it's just another way of reinterpreting whatever happened during the week. Now, I don't know whether that kind of stuff makes it to the international market, but it's a staple.
Partner, this runner is excellent at reading pitches and their deliveries. I wouldn't be shocked if he went here.
The programs that interest you most, you use television mainly as a source of information and also a source of sort of that snapshot.
And it's hit to right. Thompson
I also watch mind-numbing entertainment too. I mean, occasionally
Okay, this dude needs to keep his head
there'll
up.
be a
This
film
hasn't
on
been his best game. He'll never play another day.
movie channel.
Next up, David Ortiz.
This dude just knows how to steal it back. He studies film, he studies pictures, and he can try to apply it.
He's a shit called Predator 2.
They check down at third. No swing.
Soaps are something that I'm not familiar with because they run them during the day and I'm working. So I have on 2 occasions left tapes running so that I can look at it.
And he's
just to see
down
what
on
it was.
strikes.
And it's a pretty strange message. I think that you'll be inspired.
With 2 innings remaining, New York leads by 1.
Because the Mr. Everybody that they're dealing with there is not a Mr. Everybody, it's a Mrs. Everybody or a Ms. Everybody. And the calculations that they've made in the story meetings to put these things together,
This is a good move,
what
Kai, because right-handed
these
hitters have
special
some trouble
people
picking
are
up
interested
off-speed
in,
pitches from
what are
right-handed
their
pitchers.
secret desires, and what will keep their attention long enough that you can sell them stuff. the subtext of all of the soap operas are really pretty disturbing.
And he swings and misses.
There's a lot of
no choice right there.
bad sex and betrayal and
they check with the first base umpire.
turgid flux.
A 3-pitch strikeout.
If you really want to appreciate American sports, there are several things you have to see. The World Wrestling Federation, the American Gladiators, and the shows that come on after the wrestling matches on the Wrestling Channel where they interview the wrestlers. And the sponsors
have someone up in the bullpen.
In between. For these health food, bulk up, health drink things for people who wish they were bodybuilders. That's pretty interesting
2 outs
stuff.
and the bases are empty.
A lot of politics in there. Oh, and there's another show called Rock and Roller Games. It comes on the Orange County Channel. And during the Gulf War, they had put up a logo that said, "This is the War Channel."
They check down at first. He pulled the bat back
the
in
brilliant
time.
idea behind that was they took roller derby, which is an old concept.
Down he goes on
crossed
strike.
it with rock and roll and crossed it with international politics. So the bad teams had Arabic-sounding names or ethnic-sounding names.
After 7.5, Boston trails by 1.
It was called the Patriots.
Bringing in a righty to face the right-handed hitter is a good move, partner, because it creates a mismatch in the pitcher's favor.
Ethnic team would always do dirty tricks to them, but the Patriots would always win.
Stepping
And
in
then
1
the
for
show
3,
would end
Manny
with
Ramirez.
some
This guy's a
rock
pretty
star
decent
kind of
hitter.
character, not even a rock star, but a rock star-like character with a handheld microphone prancing through the audience, singing to a
Pitch misses.
pre-recorded backup track in a kind of 1970s musical style, trying to get the audience to clap their hands.
Inside for a ball.
It was terrific.
Here's the pitch.
Well, all the wrestling that I've seen, all this highly packaged wrestling, deals in
It's a
ethnic
full
stereotypes. And there are people who have the type of mindset where they almost believe in messaging audiences that these kinds of shows are pretty wrong. It just reinforces
Good
racial
start to
and
the
ethnic
inning. The
hatred.
leadoff single.
Guys, this is an ideal bunting situation. The defense needs to be fair.
Into pinch run, Johnny Damon. Runner on first.
He was one of the
no
most
one out.
eclectic musicians of the 20th century, and despite naming one of his kids after one of his wife's toes, he was surprisingly anti-drug.
People like that?
Well, here's how I got into business. When I first started off, I was a consumer of rhythm and blues. I never thought I could play it. I liked to listen to it. I used to collect rhythm and blues records. But while I was doing that, I was writing chamber music and writing orchestral music. I started writing that when I was 14. I didn't write a rock and roll song until I was in my 20s. And I wrote all this music and sent it to orchestras. Nobody would play it. So I figured if I'm writing music, I better write in a medium where I can get a musician to play it. I remember taking one of my compositions to the guy who was then the conductor of the Baltimore Symphony. His name was Massimo Freccia. And I was so young, he looked at me like, how can you possibly be a composer? And he was giving me this quiz as we were walking down the street. What's the lowest note on a bassoon? It's hard to convince somebody if you don't look like you're from a university or something that you can write music. So I just said, and went out and did something else. How many fingers am I holding up?
When you left Warner Brothers Records, it seems that you got more creative. When Shake Your Booty came out, it seems that your return to your satire and your scope seemed to be, you get back to some of that that you had started out with again. It seemed to inspire you when you left Warner Brothers Records. And
it would inspire you too if you had been with that company for 8 years, I'll tell you. But the real thing that determines the character of each album is who's on it. Because certain bands have certain types of things that they do well and certain types of things that they do badly. And you can't take a band that is specializing in one sort of thing and make them do something else. For example,
you couldn't get the band that had Mark and Howard from the Turtles to look or sound like the band that had Ruth Underwood and George Duke. It's two different worlds. It's the same idea of the music. You want to have a different medium of expression. So some people like one era of the albums over the others, and some people hate them all, and that's fine. Be free to do that.
With 45 albums, I think there's something for everybody with Frank Zappa's music.
Well, I think so, but the problem is getting it out to the public, because since today, in order to really have exposure on the radio, you do have to pay off, and I refuse to do it. And the other thing that you have to do is play the MTV ball game, and up to a certain point, I'll cooperate with MTV. I'll do interviews for them, and I've been on there before. But it's the whole ethic of selling music via picture, where ultimately the picture is the most important thing you're selling. You don't listen to the song anymore. You're looking at the girl's legs getting out of the car, her butt going up and down like that. Can you really see her tits through the thing? That's what that has turned into, and it's got nothing to do with the song. And after you've watched some of those promos, the saturation point comes after maybe 6 or 7 viewings. And if you're just listening to a record, you can listen to a record hundreds of times because the appreciation is on a different level. And my field is music. I like to write music, and that's what I'm interested in. So the audience for what I do is probably shriveling up like a prune, but that's tough tuckus. I'm not going to change my tactics in order to do something else. If you like it, it's there, and if you don't like it, go do something else.
Again, the technology that you're using with your music, you're recording digitally, you're doing the state-of-the-art recording with Parking Pumpkin Records right now.
Yeah, well, if you're going to make a record, why not do it the best way that it's possible to do it? I think that the person who spends the money on the record has worked hard enough for $8 or whatever it is that he's spending on the album, so show him a good time.
I've been listening to your music for 20 years and watched it pretty carefully. You are a purveyor of the music business, and you know what's going on, what's happening. What do you see happening in the future? What do you see 10 years down the line?
Well, it depends on who wins the censorship business that's going on. One way, here I'll give you the bleakest outlook, okay? Let's say that these deranged housewives of Washington, D.C. succeed in prodding the Congress or whatever into enacting legislation that opens the door for the type of censorship that you would have in the Soviet Union, Pravda Rock. It has to be state approved, and it has to have that kind of aroma that makes it look and smell like something really Christian. And they would do things like this. They would get the foot in the door, and then they would say, this is not enough, we must go directly to the root of the problem. And do you know what the root of the problem is? The root of the problem is the alphabet itself. With certain letters, then certain words could not then be formed. And we would have this new approved Christian alphabet with about 6 or 7 consonants in it. You wouldn't even be able to spell Jesus Christ with this new alphabet. Then they would go directly to the numbers that we all use when we're adjusting our little bank books and so forth. And they would say, there are 4 numbers here that are suggested. There's one that looks like a hole, and there's another one that's sticking straight up. They've got to go. And those 2 that fit together, one that looks like it's upside down against the other one, which we can't say, they've got to go. So now you fix the alphabet, you fix the number system. Now we're going to work on the national bird. Now the eagle is okay, but he's an endangered species. We're going to go for the ostrich. The ostrich represents the way things really are. When the ostrich gets scared, it sticks its head in the ground, it sticks its ass up in the air, and it quakes a little bit. Okay? That'll be the new American national bird. Now the flag. The red is too racy, the blue is too deep, and the white is too hard to keep clean. We're going to do away with that. It's going to be beige. It doesn't offend anybody, and it looks great as wallpaper in America.
This is the bleakest album.
Yeah, and the best is, we'll say, look, let's be reasonable about this. Sex is good for you. It's a natural function. There is no reason to think that a person shouldn't know about how his own body works at the earliest possible age. Just because you know about intercourse, masturbation, that doesn't mean you have to go out and do it when you're 5 years old, okay? It doesn't hurt to know. Why keep people ignorant? The more you know, the happier you're going to be, all right? So don't be afraid of words that make you think about sex. You're not going to die from it. You're not going to go to hell from it. You could die from it if you get AIDS, of course. The government's got something to do with that. You got to spend a bit more money on it, but the good outlook would be people will say this is unrealistic. It's overblown. It is cotton candy news, and they would just forget it. But that's not going to happen because America has gone too far to the right to just say, okay, I think this is a mistake.
While we're on the subject of America, when I was growing up in the 1950s, I grew up in suburban Massachusetts outside of Boston. You could drive a couple of hours one way up into New Hampshire, or you could drive down to New York, and the countryside looked remarkably different when you were in different areas. Things looked different. And now, here we are in the 1980s, with the burger franchises and things like that. Everything looks remarkably the same.
Well, you know,
is this related to the check-writing nincompoops that you refer to?
I think that it's a reflection of the attitude of the times. People today are, in a way, mentally more like the people of the 50s because they're so very conformist. They're so afraid of what's going on that they don't want to take the risk of being an individual. Everybody, when they go home, they go, oh, you know, I'm not tired of acting like that. You know, I had to do that to keep my job. Oh, I hate that. Now I'm going to take a bunch of drugs and forget about it, you know. There's a lot of pressure on people because they want to be themselves. You were not born as a clone of somebody else. You're an individual, I'm one. You know, you're one. All of you out there, you're one too. So you got a right to be yourself. But there's all this pressure to act like a certain kind of a person so that you can have certain kinds of friends and fit in somewhere so that you can be certified as a label. You say, oh, I've got it. I like the idea of being a yuppie. So even if you're not one, you know, you'll make yourself one so that you can go to a yuppie bar. And then when yuppies don't want to be called yuppies anymore, you'll turn into whatever they turn into. You got to have that stuff going for you. I mean, it's a waste of time. Who wants friends like to borrow money from you?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Final two-shot it is.
What is your plans? what? Take it again. Your plans for the future. Can we expect a tour? Products coming out?
You won't see a tour, but I'm coming back to Washington, D.C. when Goldwater has these hearings on the porno rock. And I'm going to come back and make my testimony about it because I don't represent the record business. I'm a middle-aged Italian guy with 4 kids. I write music, and I don't like the idea of having somebody who was never elected. I didn't vote for him. You know, these housewives, I didn't vote for them now. I don't want them messing with my rights and with First Amendment rights, you know, and I will fight it. I'll do that rather than doing a tour.
Is this the chrome-plated megaphone of destiny that you wrote about all those years ago?
You know what that is? It's part of the problem. The chrome-plated megaphone of destiny is that little chrome pee hole on the bottom of those dolls they give to girls, okay? And sometimes they're boy dolls. Now, what do you think that does to the imagination of a kid when he finally finds out that on a human being, that little chrome doodad ain't there? You know, it's a big breakthrough. They're putting the little plastic dorks on some of them now. That is the chrome-plated megaphone of destiny. What you don't know can hurt you.
I want to thank you for coming by and talking to us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Frank.
All right.
Thank you.
Why? Oh, God, he said that. Oh, no.
No, I never had the chrome-plated megaphone.
My dolls never had that, no.
You want Frank to be talking?